texted him after he started his first games the other day, right? And I texted him and said, "Oh, how did you get on?" He was like, "Steady." That was the way to use steady, right? Steady. I then met somebody on the same team in the evening, and he was like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh, I know somebody who plays here," and he was like, "Don't know," and he was like, "Oh, animal, absolute beast." He was like, he got man of steel, he was like one of the best players on the pitch, and he turns around and he's just like, texts me, he's like, "Oh," I was like, "Just steady, yeah." Everyone's
next segment. So rugby. What is your history with rugby and current status?
My history with rugby is it's always been around. My dad played, so I got a lot of influence around rugby from him. Didn't go to a traditional kind of rugby school, but always had an interest. Probably the last 10 years of my life have been my most heavily involved playing.
Very nice.
I moved jobs last March, which meant I was working in Abu Dhabi and couldn't train in Dubai. And I'm of the mindset, if you don't train, you don't play.
Yeah.
So even though I'd been playing for the first 2 years that I'd been out here, from probably March onwards last year, I didn't play. And really regretted it.
You just recently came back, right?
Yeah, so I started playing probably 3-4 weeks ago. And with a game like that, age isn't always on your side. You've got a finite number of years of playing, and particularly at a good level. So I've kind of lost 12 months in that kind of standing. But yeah, I got back into it about 4 weeks ago, playing with the Eagles. I had a really good time. They're a new club run by a bunch of really good people. It's got a really kind of family community feel to the club, really good direction, they know where they want to go. And it feels exciting to be part of that mix again. Having 12 months of sets of 2 to 4 is not conducive to running around for 60 to 80 minutes on a Friday afternoon.
Correct.
So there have been some cardio issues. I think I've played 4 games. It was probably about 10 minutes off the bench in the first, and felt like my lungs were bleeding then. Then I played
10 minutes.
Then I played a twos game for 80 minutes. With it being twos, I could kind of manage my time on the field a little bit better.
Yeah. What's twos?
Second team.
Okay.
So the game's not as fast. There's more kind of more errors, and therefore more kind of natural breaks in play. So you can breathe a little bit more. And then a couple of weeks ago, I played probably an hour 65 minutes for the firsts. That was that was entertaining, and then played on Friday for kind of 55 minutes in 40 degrees, and I was melting.
Wow.
But
it's
it's a lot of fun being back. Motivation to really get in shape for the start of next season's there.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what, because from my perspective, I've been hammering at you to get back into rugby. I think it's fair to say, because I feel like, although he'll talk about the age factor, I think physically he's probably in the best condition.
Far superior than a lot of 20-year-olds.
But I think like physically for him, he's in the best shape. He's stronger than he's ever been. I think maybe obviously the cardio should come back a little bit quicker. So if he sorts it out from that angle, I feel like next season he could be an absolute machine, because you see the way he trains, and then being able to, there's some natural alignment between what we do in the gym, especially when he's doing a lot of the explosive sled pulls and all that sort of stuff. There's a natural translation from what we do in the gym and bringing that onto the rugby pitch that I don't think a lot of people are going to be doing out here.
Good.
So I'm fascinated to see what product he's going to be producing next season, because it could be interesting, because he's a beast. He'll be very understated, and I was like rattling on about him saying, I'll drive from Ras Al Khaimah to pick him up if he's going to play next season and stuff. So
amazing.
yeah, he's
amazing.
I can't wait to see what
What's the highest level you played?
Nothing crazy. I mean, to be fair, the standard at Premiership level here is very good, and would be the best level that I played at.
Very nice.
But yeah, it's a good level.
Excellent. How did powerlifting and the strongman transfer to strongman, like training, transfer to rugby? Would you recommend it?
Not on its own. Definitely not on its own. I think there's kind of two ways of looking at it. There's the strength side, which transfers really well, but from an overall conditioning perspective, it just doesn't kind of get anywhere near what you need for playing rugby.
Okay.
It was funny, I was scrummaging last week, and I was talking to a guy after the game, and he was saying, you've clearly got a really strong back, and that's obviously where kind of the strongman and powerlifting side comes in. But to be able to do that for 2 or 4 reps is one thing. To be able to scrummage and then either defend or be part of an attack that could go on for 10, 12, 15 phases, that's really tough. And just that kind of work, get up off the floor, work again, get up off the floor again, work again, that's the area that I've really got to work on.
Okay. So every time they say scrummage, you're like, oh man.
No. I get excited when we scrummage. That's kind of my thing. Where I get less excited is when my condition is bad and
you got the ball in hand.
You've got or you're 2 scrums in and your legs feel like mush, and you think, we've got a long afternoon ahead here.
And it's not getting any cooler, right?
No, but fortunately the season's finished. So yeah, it's tough kind of pre-season. Lots of heat, lots of reps, lots of cardio.
Good. So if you had to write the ideal program for rugby, what would that look like?
It's because rugby is a game for different people.
Yeah.
So you'll have 5'0", 17 stones props, through to kind of 6'7" guys who are weighing 125 kilos, through to kind of 80 kilo guys running up and down on a wing like there's no tomorrow. You can't program somebody for rugby. Okay. It's positionally. Okay. So I think
pick a position that you play.
So I'm a prop. The big thing for me is
you are a prop.
I am a prop. Strength and power. Initially. So for working the scrum, line out lifting, and then kind of working what you would call the tight. So if there's a breakdown, we would be expected to be tight into the breakdown, either hitting rucks or then making tackles close to the breakdown. But it's getting the reps in as well. So you've got to be conditioned to not be able to do it once, twice, 3 times, but 20, 30, 40 times a game.
Very nice. Okay. Dealing with injuries, what would be the most common injuries with rugby?
Most common now is concussion.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
You look at the Premiership in England, and I think there was figures released last week or the week before saying that 22% of injuries were concussions. And that's kind of where we're at. It's a game of collisions, and
it's a car crash every weekend.
And sometimes those collisions hit you on the head.
What would you? How would you train for that?
For concussion, you can't. Unfortunately, you can't grow muscle on your skull. A lot of it comes down to technique. So if you're tackling, getting your head in the right position, the last thing that you need is a 20-stone guy rumbling towards you, and you've got your head on the wrong side of his knees, it's going to cause an issue. The big thing with rugby now is managing concussion when it happens, and making sure that people are going through the correct protocols in terms of returning to the game. So whether that be actually on the day, if you get a concussion, then there's a test that takes place to make sure you're fit to go back onto the field. If you're not, then you'll be removed from the game. But then there's also kind of return to play protocols post-concussion. So should you be playing in a week's time or 2 weeks' time, and there'll be lots of kind of cognitive tests that take place to make sure everything's as it should be.
But even from your own personal experience, I mean, you know the sort of dangers of something like concussion are very, very serious and real. I think sometimes you can be so desensitized to things like that when you're watching from TV, when you're seeing collisions, but I mean, you know from your own experience.
I've had 2 kind of good knockouts, one of which I drove to a place where my wife worked probably 15 years ago to pick her up, bearing in mind she'd not worked there for 10 years, and then then the second time I completely lost the day before. So I'd been to a gig the night before, played on the Saturday, this was back at home, got knocked out, and then couldn't remember the gig or anything that had happened that day on the Friday. It all came back to me eventually, but there's just kind of little things that can be
manage
scary at the time.
Manage it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at something like the NFL, for example, obviously concussions are a huge talking point for that sport at the moment, and I think the collisions there are even greater than they are in rugby because of the fact that they've got so much protection. They kind of use that to be very untechnical with how they're tackling, but it's just hearing something like that is quite jarring.
It is.
So it's something that I think if people are playing those sort of sports, particularly out here, because American football is very big out here, so is rugby. It's something that people need to be taking a lot more serious than I think is at the moment.
Where do you see your future in rugby?
I would say,
or where would you like to go?
I would like to have.
I mean, you are 40, so.
I am. I would love to have 2 or 3 good seasons. If I think I can do that, then I'd be pretty satisfied.
Excellent.
From there, kind of time allowing and things like that, I'd love to get into the coaching side.
That'd be.
But 2 or 3 seasons at a good level would suit me.
Well, stay as steady as you are, and you'll be fine. Can we move on to? Actually, let's end with a little message on. So, for the younger generation, what would be your message for rugby players? It can be as broad as. Well, it's a very open-ended.
I think the key thing is to make sure you're enjoying what you do. Particularly in a game like rugby that is so hard on your body, you've got to enjoy what you do. And as soon as you lose that spark and that want to get up on a Friday or a Saturday morning and go out and play, then you should be questioning whether you're doing it or not.
That's a message across everything though, because I think that's the way my mindset is for training. Like I've flitted with the idea in the past of like potentially trying to compete at some stage, and the reason why I've always neglected it is because I feel like it would suck the life out of it, as in like stage comp, like doing a stage comp.
Fitness model?
Yeah, no, not fitness, but like
Board shorts.
Yeah, board shorts.
Yeah.
I've like flitted with the idea of doing it, but purely the reason why I've always counted from it is because I feel like it would just suck the enjoyment out of it entirely. Like the reason, is because I can be as flexible as I want to be. I can shift training to how I want. I train the way I feel like benefits me most from a mental perspective, rather than necessarily from a physical perspective.
Yeah.
I think I train the way that there's so many more things that I could do nutritionally and from training that would help me aesthetically, but I don't do because I don't think it would be that enjoyable. So I think that's a message, not just for rugby, it's across everything. You have to enjoy what you do, otherwise why are you doing it?
Correct. Let's talk about yourself, Alex. So,
that's a good subject, eh?
His favourite
his favorite subject. Semi-pro soccer, right?
Briefly.
Where did you play?
It was for a team called Vauxhall Motors back in the UK, but ravaged by injury the entire time. I've had hamstring injuries for as long as I can remember. So yeah, I played football since I was maybe about 11. Started out as a centre back and then gradually started moving up the pitch, because when I was a lot younger I was a lot taller, faster, bigger than everyone else, and then when everyone caught up to me I started to get crowded out. I was like, okay, I need to move away from everyone else. So yeah, I played very briefly, and then yeah, I've had hamstring problems for a long time. I'm naturally quite a fast player, so I rely so much on my sprinting, and as a result of that I've just